When it comes to social media, getting someone to stop and actually stay on your video, and maybe even play it multiple times, is really key to getting that seen by more people. So using Canva and one of its often overlooked tools, today I'm going to show you how to quickly and easily create a fast-changing interactive video that kind of teases the viewer and prompts them to click on the video, to pause, to read the quote or messages that they land on. Now, these kinds of videos are really shareable. They kind of gamify sharing simple messages, and in general, it's a great way of getting people to stop and stay a while on your profile. For this example, we're going to be sharing productivity tips. We're actually going to use ChatGPT to give us a little hand with the content. And our end product is going to look a little something like this. The fun thing about these videos is that people often do it multiple times, either just to see what else is in there because they're curious, or more often because they don't like the answer that they first got. So they keep trying and get the one that really appeals to them. And if you hang around till the end of this video, I'm actually going to list a whole load of examples and unique ways to make this work for you, no matter what your niche or your business. So let's do this. One of the best ways of streamlining your workflow when you're creating social media content in Canva is to have a preparation checklist to gather your assets and make sure you have everything that you need easily accessible before you start designing. Now, inside my CANVA.OS course, which I will talk about in a little bit, we actually share how to do this really effectively with a cheat sheet so that it becomes easy to establish a process that you can repeat. The point is, trust me when I say that a bit of preparation time up front really helps to minimize any overwhelm and makes the whole content creation process so much faster. So for this example, my preparation includes making sure that I have a few things. First of all, the correct dimensions for the platform where this is going to be published. And that includes knowing what the safe zones are so my content doesn't get cut off on that design. Secondly, I need to have images or icons that I want to use already, especially if I choose to use them in each of these pages. Thirdly, I need my brand kit set up in Canva, or at least my brand assets and colors, etc. ready to go and easily accessible. And fourth, I need to know what my call to action is, what I want people to do, so that there is a clear intention behind my content to help me build my brand or business. And lastly, I need that list of productivity tips to include in the design. Now, for this example, we're actually going to use ChatGPT to help us out. But you can obviously do this with existing info, content that you write, whatever works for you and for your audience, because after all, this should always be about providing value to your audience, even if it's just having a bit of fun. One thing to note is that we are going to need to have the individual tips or quotes in a table format. And I'll show you why in a second. So as I mentioned, we're going to use ChatGPT to help us out with the tips that we're going to share. So I'm just going to open ChatGPT and I'm going to use this really simple prompt. Please compile a list of 20 productivity tips to share on social media. Draw from the work of modern experts like James Clear, Mark Manson, Ali Abdaal, Thomas Frank, Laura Vanderkam, Anne-Laurie LeCunff, Tiago Forte, Chris Bailey, Cal Newport, etc. And the reason that I've specifically mentioned those people is because I don't want tips that are rooted in the kind of hustle culture productivity thing. I want a more modern approach. Make these tips actionable and don't include anything that requires previous knowledge or explanation of any specific concept. Please present them in a table format with just one column and don't number them. Now, we're keeping this really simple, but you could also ask for it to create a second column with the source of the tip or the name of the person it came from. Or maybe you could separate the info into one column for the tip and one column for a second sentence that explains why that tip works. But we're going to just go with simple for this example. Now that we've got those, we're going to switch to Canva and start creating our video scenes or pages within that video. In Canva, we're going to go to social media and then Instagram Reel to start a vertical video. First thing I want to do is just change the background to black And the next thing that I want to do is just to rename it. So I'm going to rename it Productivity Tips. Then I want to add some guides in to make sure that I know the safe zones that I'm working in. I'm going to click and drag from the ruler and just let it snap to where Canva have already put those left-hand and right-hand guides. And I'm going to do the same at the top. But then for the bottom, I'm going to click and drag a guide to about 2/3 of the way down the page, because I know that for most social media platforms, this bottom third of the page is usually covered by some kind of overlay or information. So we know that this top panel is kind of our safe zone for text. Next, we're going to add in a background. So I'm just going to add in a simple photo background. I'm going to go to Photos, and I'm going to search for Desk and Laptop, and I'm going to filter by vertical. And then look through those. I'm going to choose this one because I think the colors work with my brand and I like it. And I am going to just then click and drag it so that it fills that page. And I'm going to center it or align it the way that I like it. Now I'm going to have text boxes with white text over this, so I need to make sure they stand out. And an easy way to do that is to just go to the top here to transparency and take the transparency of the image right down so that you can still kind of see it, but white text will stand out on it. Speaking of which, we're going to add in our title text. So we're going to move that up to the top, and this is just going to say, your daily tip to boost your productivity. And then I'm just going to change the alignment, spacing, sizing, etc. until I am happy with how this looks as a title. I'm going to add in a line underneath it, just as a bit of a divider. And then for the bottom here, I'm going to go to my brand, and I am going to add in my brand logo, add it at the bottom. And I know that it might be covered up, but that's okay because it's just for a little bit of branding. And then I'm going to add in another line, which I'm going to center so that it kind of draws people's eye down to the logo. And then that means that this space here is where we can add a text box for our tips. So a good way of knowing what kind of size you need to work with is to use the text from the tip that has the most words in it. So I'm going to go back to ChatGPT, and this looks like it's got the longest tip, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to Canva and paste it in. Now I'm just going to format this so that it looks the way that I think I want it to look when people select it or tap to stop this video and find their tip for the day. The one thing to note is that they're all going to be different lengths in terms of number of words, etc. And so you want them all to kind of fit into this space. And that's why I'm using the longest one as the kind of example. But the other thing you could do is for the spacing, make sure that you've used the center or middle anchor. And what that means is that even if this tip was twice as long, it will resize based on the center of this box, which still keeps it loosely within this spacing. But we know that that's the longest one, so that will work well there. In fact, I might take the text size up just a little and bring it in a little so that it fills that space a bit more. And that's essentially what each one of our tips is going to look like. Now, instead of having to create 20 pages and copy and paste text in, we're going to let Canva do it for us. And we're going to do that using the bulk create tool. And we're going to first find the tool by going to Apps on the left-hand side, and we're going to type into the search bar, bulk create 2 words. And you'll see that the first one that comes up on the top left here, which doesn't have a kind of funky colored icon, is Canva's bulk create tool. And when you click on it, it will start guiding us through the process of this bulk creation. If you are enjoying this tutorial and you'd like to up-level your skills and learn to use Canva like a pro, then I am very excited to announce that my Canva course called CANVA.OS has just opened enrollment. CANVA.OS is intentionally structured to not only help you to design better, but to help you create a workflow and a process so that you can consistently create beautiful, on-brand materials and content without having to start from scratch every time. The aim of the program is to help you create with calm and confidence in Canva, no matter what you are designing. So if that does sound like something you're interested in, then now is the time to join, because not only is there a brand new bonus specifically just for this launch, but for the first few days of this enrollment period, I am also offering an early bird discount. So to find out more about that discount and the bonuses, just head to the link that's on the screen right now or in the description below the video, and I would love to see you inside Canva.OS. The early bird discount expires at the end of this week, so you've got a few more days, and obviously if you have any questions, please just drop me an email. So first of all, the first step says add your data. And the way we're going to do that is by entering it manually. Now you can upload an Excel sheet or a CSV spreadsheet with your data already prepared, and that's a really good way of doing it if you've got multiple fields especially. We've only got the one column, so we're going to enter it manually. When I click on that button, it will open up a very simple table for us. Now, I'm going to clear the table by clicking on the bottom left here, and we then just have the one column to work with. Now I'm going to go back to ChatGPT again. From here, I'm going to select all 20 of these, and I am just going to copy them using Control or Command C, or right-clicking and choosing Copy. Then we're going to go back to Canva, and I'm going to place my cursor just in that first cell at the top, and I'm going to hit Control V or Paste. And now we have 20 rows, each one with a different tip in it. Now, just as a note, you can add another text column in. In fact, you can add multiple text columns in. So as we mentioned before, you could have these tips having a separate column that has a credit for who said them, or maybe elaborates a little more on the tip, or gives you 3 steps that help you apply it. Whatever you want, you can make it as complex or as creative as you want. The other thing is that you can also add an image in. You'll notice that if I click on the Add Image button at the top here, it adds a column in for an image. And then when I click in that cell, it will ask me what image I want to use. Now, a couple of things to be aware of for this is, first of all, the image has to be already uploaded to your Canva folders, your Uploads folder or another folder in your projects. You can't choose from the elements or the image library in Canva. You would have to download the image and then be uploaded to your folders to be able to use it. The other thing to note is that you can't use videos. You can only use images for this. A really interesting thing that you could do is, instead of using a separate image on every single slide or page of this, you could just use a different icon. And again, remember, you would have to download those and re-upload them into your Canva folders to use them. And you could even use the background as an image frame where you could replace all the images. And that works exactly the same way as we're going to do replacing the text. Now, first of all, I'm going to get rid of this column, so I'm just going to click on Image, right-click and say Delete Column. Now my data is all in there. I'm going to click Done, and it takes me to step 2 of the bulk create process. And this is where it's asking me to connect my data to the elements. And it's showing me that there's one data field, and it's called empty. So let's go back and correct that. I'm going to click on Enter Data manually again, and instead of Untitled, I'm going to give this a title which just says Tips. Now I'm going to click Done again and go back to number 2 in the process, and you'll see it now says that the data field's called Tips. Now what it's wanting me to do is to associate the data field in that table with a frame in this design so that it knows what to replace and how to create these multiple slides. And all I do is click on one of the text boxes, and then in the menu that pops up, I click Connect Data. It will then ask me which data field to allocate. And obviously we only have one here, but you may have multiples. And you can then click on Tips, and it will show in your design that that is the data field that's going to be replaced in this text box. Now, it works very much the same if you want an image. You could just add in a frame, and when you associate the data, it will ask you which image column you want to connect to those image frames within each of your templates. To keep this really simple, as I say, we've just done text, and now that those are connected, I'm just going to click Continue at the bottom left here, and it will first allow us to preview all of the data that's going to be merged. And once we're happy with that, we just click Generate 20 Designs, and it will open a new design for you. So this is a new Canva design, and you can tell because at the top it has added this bulk 1 before the title of my original document. But you can also see that there are now 20 slides in here, and on each one a different tip appears. So it has just bulk created this for us just from that table that we got from ChatGPT. Next, we want to create our top and tail or our front and end slides. And so I'm just going to add in a slide at the beginning of this, and we are going to create what we want our first page to be when people land on our video. I want to add in a video background, so I'm just going to go to videos, and I am going to search for laptop desk just as a random search, and then I'm going to filter by vertical to see what I get. And I'm just going to pick one that works for me. So this one with somebody opening a computer, it looks pretty good. I'm going to bring it in and resize it. And again, I'm going to take down the transparency a bit, so that my text works over it. And now I'm going to just add in some text boxes so that people know what their instructions are to get their tip. So I've got a title that says small changes have big impact, and then an instruction as a subtitle that says tap to select the one tip you can apply today to up-level your productivity. Next thing I'm going to do, as usual, is just go to the branding and drop in a logo at the bottom. And then the other thing that I want to do is to add in a little icon that indicates to them what they're supposed to do. So it just gives them the cue that they're supposed to tap the screen. So I'm going to go to Elements and I'm going to search for touch screen and I'm going to look in graphics. And there you go. You've got these little icons that basically imply what you want people to do. So I'm going to pull in one that I like. I'm going to angle it and I'm going to change the color. And then I'm going to add some basic animations. So for the title, I'm just going to bring it in a clarify effect. I'm going to speed that up. And then for the other one, I'm going to add in a typewriter effect, and I'm going to change the timing so that that only comes in once the title is pretty much there. And then I'm going to animate the icon with a pop so that it really stands out and people can see what they're supposed to do. So now if I just play that through, you'll see the title comes in, and then the subtitle and the icon came in a little early. So I'm going to click on it, make sure that only pops in when the subtitle has pretty much come in. So obviously you can play around with the timing so this works for you, and we just want to make sure that the instructions are super clear for people. So when we play it through, we've got our branding, we've got a title, we've got the instructions, and then we've got a little icon that makes sure that they know exactly what to do on the next pages. Now, of course, we want these pages with the tips on to all move really quickly. So first of all, I'm going to click to zoom on my thumbnails and I'm going to zoom out so I can see them all. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of them, all of the slides that have the tips on, and I'm going to change the timing to 0.2 seconds for all of them. And you'll see that they get really small down there. Next thing I'm going to do is, while they're all selected still, is just copy. And I am then going to go to the end of these and paste them. And I'm going to do that 3 or 4 times because they're very short and we do want it to go on for a bit. So if I play through again, we've got our intro slide, which tells people what to do. And then we've got the icon that gives them the cue. And then it will cycle through all of these. And as soon as somebody taps on it to pause, it will give them their daily tip to boost their productivity. And because it repeats, it gives people a chance to try again and again to see what they actually get. And hopefully try a couple of times. Of course, if you want to, you could actually select all of those and make them even quicker if you wanted it to be more dynamic and just take them down to 0.1 seconds. You'll see that it's the same effect, it's just really quick. But it's very effective, and when people tap on it, they will get the one that's selected for them. Next, we're going to just add our finishing slide, and for that one, again, we're going to add in some branding, but we're going to make a little more of it. And I think for this, we're just going to keep it super simple. We're just going to add in a text box with a call to action. Visit our website to find out more tips to help you be more productive. And then we'll just put in a text box with a domain in. And then you can just add some basic animations into that. But as long as there is a call to action, so there's a reason for this to exist. And that's pretty much it. Now we just need to click on share and download our video, and it's ready for us to share to one of our social media channels. Now this kind of video is so versatile, and you can get really creative with it. So I promised you some ideas for other niches or businesses. So here's just a few off the top of my head. For real estate, you could have something that says, which house is calling your name? And then have images of different houses that you have available. And then your call to action could be for them to get in touch to find their perfect home. For home improvement or DIY, you could say something like, one-day projects that you could do to impress your friends. And then link to your tutorials or your course. For personal development, you could do something as simple as today's affirmation. And then your call to action could link them to your blog or your website or even your coaching. If you had something focused on kindness, you could say, has anyone told you that ... and then link to your blog or your book or anything like that when they click on those compliments. For food, you could use it just as like a daily fortune cookie or a suggestion of what someone could cook next and then link to your recipes. For tech, you could do something like, which famous AI are you? And then you could have a call to action that says, want to avoid the robot revolution? Learn AI with us. For finance, you could say something like, one small change that could start you on your way to wealth. And then some suggestions and link again to your website. For design, you could say, this simple tip could elevate your design, and then have really easy to apply designs on those pages. For fashion, you could say, elevate your look, a new style idea that you could try today. And then have them book their style consult as a call to action. And for something even like a comic book store online, you could have a fun one that says, what would your superpower be? And then again prompt them to go to your online store. And maybe for smart home devices, you could say how smart tech could change your life. And then your call to action or prompt could be for them to see the full range once you've shown them some ideas of how it could improve their life. Now that's just a few ideas off the top of my head, so you could get creative and really have fun with this. And now that you know how to quickly and easily pull this kind of interactive reel together using Canva's bulk create feature, you can experiment and try more complex ideas with images and backgrounds and all sorts of elements. Bulk edit is not a feature that I have personally used very much, but now that I'm exploring it, I am really starting to see the possibilities of how it could speed up content creation and how I could get really creative with it. Please let me know in the comments if you do use it, and if you have any interesting ways or suggestions for how it could be used. And of course, if you want to learn how to feel confident designing anything in Canva and to create a workflow that stops you having to start from scratch every time or spend ages creating content that will only be seen for seconds, please don't forget that CANVA.OS is now open for enrollment, and the early bird pricing ends in just a couple of days. So this is the time to join us and learn to use Canva like a pro. That's it for me, folks. Please don't get bogged down by the news at the moment. Rather, reach out and spread some kindness to someone who needs it. And we all need it. Have a great week, and I will see you soon.